I mean, I'm going to assume it's going to be.
I might have to look at your,
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, I was going to say, if you, I mean, we can always start. And
okay. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. It is 6:07, so we're first going to start with roll call. Mr. Gippen?
Present.
Mr. Peoples?
Present.
Ms. Lewis?
Present.
Castle?
Present.
Anaskevich, present. Costa?
Present.
Ms.
Richards, present.
Richards? Ms. Reed sent a text message. She is running late, and Mr. Boyd will not be here this evening. Can I have a motion for someone to approve the review and approval of the minutes from the meeting held on 10/18/23?
So move.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Gippen?
Yes.
Mr. Peoples?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Castle?
Yes.
Anaskevich, yes. Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we have on the agenda public comments.
I have them.
Okay.
Apostolate?
Please be advised you get 3 minutes per person.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I usually come and I offer solutions and suggestions, but this evening I'm coming because I need your assistance. I have some elected officials and some law enforcement officers targeting me to silence me and assassinate me for not only reporting abuse, but because I'm running for president of the United States of America. This has been going on for multiple elections. And every election, the police call me on my phone with a mental health person on the phone trying to bait me to police districts. And when I went to the hospital here in Akron, they denied me medical care and tried to pink slip me and lock me up in the psychiatric ward for just showing up in the hospital. This has been going on since 2008, 12, 16, 2020, where I have been a candidate, and they have been monitoring me in police radios and messing with my telephones and all of my electronic devices. I've been beat up by law enforcement officers, and it's not just in one city, it's across this country. I have elected officials trying to get other elected officials to deny me the right to speak publicly, which is a violation of my civil, human, and constitutional rights. I don't break laws and I don't break the rules. And I need an investigation done. I've been calling you all, I've been emailing you all, I've been requesting from you all that an investigation be done, and I don't want to be dead as a result of reporting criminal behavior from the police. Summa Hospital denied me medical care. I waited for 2.5 hours, and they tried to pink slip me, and they put me in a filthy place. And they had when I went in, there was one law enforcement officer. When I left, there were 3. And the lady screamed and hollered at me and told me, "Yeah, I'll get you when I get to you." A white male came in there and was seen within 5 minutes. The seat didn't even get hot. And they've been bothering me for a long time. My ballots have disappeared in elections. And when I try to go to the authorities to address it, to do complaints, law enforcement officers in the state of Ohio, Indiana, and other places are having my complaints thrown out and targeting me and doing bad things to me. I've been in politics all my life. My parents are political leaders, and I'm a retired probation officer, and I don't do bad things to people. I follow the rules, and I am concerned of my safety for the Akron Police, Cleveland Police, Ohio, and the United States Department of Justice, because I've gone to Earl Sanders and others in reference to this. My phone number is 330-428-9191. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vicky Shockey, please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Vicky Shockey, and I am a senior citizen. I'm also diabetic. I have some concerns, and I also have a question. First of all, I live in a neighborhood where people smoke skunk weed. They drive around in the area, skunk weed. They walk through the area, skunk weed. You stand at a bus stop, it's skunk weed. I ride numerous buses every day at Metro. Now, I've had issues with Metro. My concern is, and my question is, if I go somewhere and I got skunk weed on me, no due to my own fault, I go somewhere and I'm smelling like skunk weed, you know? I mean, I'm walking through a neighborhood early in the mornings, and some people's front porch are smoking. You walk down the street, they're smoking. You go to a bus stop, they're smoking. I have that smell on me. How can I prevent a situation that is no fault of my own? What do I do? Please, somebody give me an answer. I can't wear perfume and spray myself with perfume because I'm highly allergic to perfume. What am I supposed to do? I am scared anymore to walk in the public because people just driving around smoking skunk weed, standing at bus stops. It's even on the buses. If I carry that on me and one of the officers smells this on me, what am I to do when I have no control? My hands are fit to be tied. What did I do? Please, somebody answer me. This is a concern to me. I am 67 years old. I grew up in Ohio. I don't know where to turn. I don't know what to do. I need some answers. What do I do? Can somebody please tell me?
Have you, well, I don't have the answer other than maybe report it to the police department or the Akron Health Department. Maybe the Akron Health Department has a program that they can institute or implement in your neighborhood. That's the only thing off the top of my head that I can come up with, or maybe contact the Akron Area on Aging to see if perhaps they might have a program, something that could help you out in that way, maybe relocate you in some way to a different neighborhood, the Akron Area on Aging. Those, off the top of my head, those are the only suggestions that I can come up with.
It's time.
Can anybody else give me some suggestions, please?
Go ahead, Mr. Morgan, go ahead.
All right, thank you, I appreciate it.
I'd like for someone to talk to me too about my safety. I'm totally displaced. I've been homeless for 22 years because of the police. And I don't want just a brush off. I would like someone to give me some safety. I'm in a safety home program, and I have a protection order. And my matters are not being.
Pass the letter. Reverend John Beatty, please.
Okay, thank you, Miss, what was her name? Thank you, Ms. Shockey.
Thank you for the privilege of speaking to you this evening. I'm Reverend John Beatty, 2047 Wyndham Road in 44313 zip code. First of all, I want to say that I'm praying for this committee and for all of you, and just want to remind you of how important you are to the citizens, black and white and whatever ethnic we are. Please know how important you are. And we look for you gaining strength as a committee over the months to come. The particular incident that I wish to bring to your attention, last Monday night, one of the council persons, city council, revealed about the youth violence incident again. And this was a case where several African-American youth were gathered at Lawton Community Center, ready to fight another group of, I am assuming, African-American juveniles, youth. And they were caught on the grounds after hours at the Lawton Community Center. And the police caught them there, and one of the policemen, according to some of the people, the citizens there that were complaining, was one of the persons that killed Jalen Walker. And there was violence by the police against these youth. I'm appealing for this group to help the police to find a different way to confront youth who may have been there to settle a case from school and were ready to fight. And today, the youth seem to use guns when they fight. And we've had too many. But what would happen, I'm losing my time, if the police befriended these youth, invited them to come and maybe come and have some ice cream or whatever, and talk to them instead of violently assaulted them? There's a different way to police. And hopefully this committee will help you to find that. Thank you.
That's all the requests I have.
Mr. Fields is not yet here, so we're going to jump down to Roman numeral number 5, to the subcommittee report outs. And we'll start with governance. Mr. Gibbon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 items tonight, and the first is just going to be by way of a report. One's a resolution that if the board wishes, we would recommend for action tonight. And the third will be presented for initial discussion, and then with a motion to table that one. So if I might, if the first item has to do with the website, which the committee has been looking at, and Ms. Castle has taken lead on that, so I would ask if she might report to the board about it.
Absolutely. So we did previously discuss 2 proposals that we received from some local organizations. Recently, we did learn that the city of Akron was revamping their webpage, and that was going to be launched. I believe it launched officially today, was the first day. So I did meet with Stephanie Marsh in the communications department last Thursday, and we had a very productive conversation. She was able to demonstrate to me what the new page was going to look like, and also what it would look like on the management side for the board. So based upon what I saw with Ms. Marsh, everything aligns with what we were hoping to accomplish through the web page. So we would have the autonomy to manage the content that is on the page. It is very much more user-friendly than the other landing page. Now, if you go on there, you will see our official logo is on there, which was something we were hoping for. We do have the complaint as well as the compliment a cop is more prevalent on where citizens can access those forms to complete those. So you guys can take a look at it, but I do think at this time, our recommendation is that we are gonna pilot the current webpage through the city for a month, and then we can discuss it again to see if we do need to move forward with one of the external agencies. But right now, I do recommend that we pilot that for a month. That was the group consensus in governance, and you guys, it is live now, so you can take a look at that webpage as well.
Okay, any discussion, any questions for Ms. Castle regarding the webpage?
Thanks, Ms. Castle. The second item has to do with formally resolving and to proceed with the review of certain topics to do with the operations of the police department, which we've been talking about for a number of
Sorry.
weeks.
I'm sorry.
And it, both in committee and in the board, we felt, the governance felt that there was enough consensus about which topics to pursue, that it was time to bring this to the board for formal action so that we could proceed with the work. We discussed this at some length in governance last week and agreed in principle, but we felt that there was some drafting that needed to be done, and it couldn't be done that night. For that reason, you may have noticed that we set a special meeting of governance tonight at 5. Mr. Peoples joined us, which we appreciated, so that we could actually go over a formal draft of the resolution, which we did. A couple of changes, and then I'm sorry I wasn't able to do it sooner, but you can understand why it wasn't until it was. Some 15 or 20 minutes ago, this was forwarded to all of you as the recommendation of the governance committee. So to recap, the 5 topics that we'd been talking about, consensus about: 1, the FOP agreement; 2, the complaint incident processing in general, the process of it; what we're calling the culture of the department. That may need some further thought as we proceed as to whether that's the right term, but we're calling it culture for now, to include looking at demographic diversity in the department and its underlying philosophy of operation. Next topic, data, broadly, how it's created, collected, processed, stored, and then use of force. I wanted to let you know that Mr. Boyd and I had the opportunity to meet with Deputy Chief Harding and Mr. Morgan yesterday afternoon. We thought it would be beneficial to, let them know what our thinking was about this and get their feedback about the topics and how we would then proceed in detail with the part of this. Obviously, it's going to, a lot of the work on these topics will be with the department and getting information from the department and having discussions. So we wanted to get that conversation going. In a very good meeting, and we just very much appreciated the discussion and the approach. You see this tonight because the sense we got back was that these topics were workable. Although we're going to have to look hard at whether we can actually do them as the work begins. But they seem to be topics that were important and that we can explore. And Deputy Chief Harding, I think, has already begun work about who the point people would be in the department, for each of these topics, and it might be several people. So you know, we were again very, very happy with with that meeting, and I think we're in a position where we can actually go forward with the work, assuming that you approve this tonight. So it was the unanimous recommendation of governance that this be approved, and I will so move.
Any discussion, further discussion?
Oh, well, second, like this.
Any second? Okay, further discussion?
Mr. Gibbons, I didn't hear the fifth one, I'm sorry.
Use of force? It's FOP, complaints, complaint incident processing culture, data, and use of force.
And this is research-based? You're looking at doing
It's-
research?
It's a combination of research, it's information, well, it's research, but also it's going to be consideration of the information that we receive, looking to making findings that we would then ultimately, findings that we would report and recommendations to the mayor and council that we would then also to the community. But the process, I mean, we've talked about this, I mean, plainly a lot of it, you know, is with the department, you know, finding out, you know, what is going on, okay, at the department. But it's also going to be external research. I think we've mentioned, I think several times, that we have the great benefit of a class at the law school that is working on essentially these topics, or close enough to these topics. And we're going to have the benefit of the work they do. And then some of it's, I mean, we want to get community input about it, for sure, on these topics. And as well, just individual research that the, I'm going to call it team members who are working on these may do. I should say, I mean, use of force, I think I've said, that's the topic I have interest in. And I actually did a 6-hour webinar now a week or two ago, you know, on use of force, which was put on by a private group, but the presenter was a member of the Dallas Police Force, who's also an expert on this, a national expert. And I found it very valuable. You know, and there's much more of that to be done. So it's going to be, I hope, it's going to take work, as we've said again and again, you know, to get a lot of perspectives and hopefully come to some good, thoughtful, cogent, you know, findings and recommendations.
So I just have one question. What would the community input look like? What do you envision the community input to look like?
Well, I think we would probably want to just make it known to the public, maybe a little more formally than just saying it tonight, you know, that we're going to pursue these topics, and we would welcome, you know, input from the community. But I think that then some of the work is going to folks that we know about in the community who have been interested in our work and interested in the work of the department, and going to them and you know, starting conversation. I think that needs to be filled out more. I don't think we've, you know, we don't have an action plan. Maybe that's some of what we talk about Saturday, but we definitely want community input, and I think there's a lot of useful input that we'll get.
Yeah, but we're going to need some kind of filters. Otherwise, it'd be hard to meet our goals if we just have anyone and everyone who has a gripe. I'm worried about the gripes.
Understood.
You know, we get enough of them through emails already, so I'm worried about the gripes taking up valuable time that could be used for the real research that would need to be done on something like this.
Understood.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mr. Gibbons, would we have subtopics underneath these 5 main topics? One of the reasons why I'm asking
Oh, yeah.
is,
I mean, I think it's got to be a flexible process. And again, I think we've said we envision this being implemented through the committees. But it's really going to be that hopefully everybody is going to have at least one topic, you know, that they have interest and energy for. And maybe a little bit, we need to be flexible. I mean, if somebody who isn't on a particular committee wants to work on a particular topic, you know, I would hope that would be possible. But that's how the work's going to get done, is individually. I mean, our assumption has been, and Deputy Chief Harding asked this pretty much at the start yesterday, you know, well, is this a staff function? And of course, I had to say that given the present situation, we really cannot count on having any staff help for this. If it works out that you know, we got Shannon now, but, you know, particularly if we get an auditor, deputy auditor soon, as they begin their work, if they then have time and, you know, to help with this, that's going to be perfect. But we can't assume it. We can't assume it.
Yeah, and again, you know, we have to remember that Shannon's primary role is going to be working for the auditor.
Exactly.
So I know that there are ideas on, some people on this board have ideas, well, let's have her do this, let's have her do that. We're not going to be doing that. Her primary role is to work for the auditor.
Yeah, it's not contemplated that, at this point, not contemplated she would be doing any of this work.
Okay. And with that said, welcome, Shannon, officially welcome to you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We're glad to have you.
And Ms. Lewis, I don't know if I fully answered your question, but well enough? Okay.
Anyone else? So did you want us to, what, vote on
Vote.
this, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so a question before we vote. You met with Mr., I don't know, the chair is not here. And I'm not sure, I think anything that we need to vote on, his vote needs to be done in public, and it needs to be on record.
He is not, I think he's comfortable not voting on this. So, not the other piece, but this one, I think he.
Our rules don't require that the chair participate in any one particular vote. So while as a matter of, I guess maybe best practice from a public record standpoint, it would be nice to have something. It's not needed, just for that point of clarification.
It does need the vote of 2/3 of the board.
I understand that, and in a quorum, I understand all that. I'm just putting out there if the board feels comfortable voting on anything without having the chair present to cast his
For
vote.
what it's worth, I mean, he was in the conversation yesterday, and
I understand that. I'm talking for public consumption.
okay.
That's all.
I'm comfortable.
Anyone else?
I am as well.
Okay. Ms. Reed?
This is to move forward with the categories for the rules, correct?
Correct. Not the rules. It's these categories.
I'm sorry, the categories for the recommendations, is that right?
Yes, for the review and report, yes.
I think for the subject matter, I'm okay moving forward with this without the chair on this topic, yes.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. We call for a vote. Mr. Gippen?
Yes.
Mr. Peoples?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
No.
Ms. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes, I would like to hear if you want to, okay. Yes.
Anaskevich, yes.
Okay, thank you. And again, we need to get to work with this. I mean, that needs to please be thinking about, if you haven't already, what do you want to work on? And the committee chairs, I think, are all aware of this, so hopefully we'll get to it.
I know you're not finished. Before you move forward, my computer was on the fritz, and now it's just reset itself. And there's, I had received an email from Mr. Fields. He's having some health issues today, so he will not be here to do his report out. But he did send a draft, and I'll send it around to everyone about his, he said there was not much to report out, but what he had, he sent a draft of it, and I'll email it out to everyone. Okay.
The next
continue.
item of business, we've had the legislation pending since July concerning sending our rules on to council. And of course, there's been a lot of discussion about it. Mr. Costa had a very good suggestion a week or so ago about a potential, frankly, compromise position on this that might allow us to go forward comfortably or comfortably enough with the rules. And I'm going to ask him to explain, but that's been now brought into the a draft amended resolution that I sent to you also a few minutes before the meeting started, that is likewise coming from governance with a unanimous recommendation that it be adopted, although not tonight. So I wonder, Mr. Costa, would you mind explaining your thinking that led to this proposed amendment?
Yeah, of course. So as everyone know, and as you've been following the process along, the charter requires the board to adopt the rules. And our rules that we adopt are going to be subject to city council's approval. And on July 12th, our board did adopt the rules. The charter also provides that the rules cannot conflict with the City of Akron's collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police. Earlier this year, it was brought to the board's attention that the provision under our rules as adopted, to which the board took the position that we may undertake an investigation at any time, could potentially be in conflict with the collective bargaining agreement, and that there is a legal issue as to whether the scope of the board's authority as set forth in those rules is consistent with a collective bargaining agreement between the city. And so, and it's also a strong likelihood as well too that if acted upon under our current rules, that could result into litigation, which could both be lengthy as well as costly. As a alternative, governance has proposed the idea that the board adopt the resolution that was sent out to everyone earlier this evening, and which in effect moves forward the board's rules in its current form. However, it also takes the position, and the board declares that the board will forego launching any investigations until the City of Akron has finalized its negotiations with the Fraternal Order of Police in its new collective bargaining agreement, and that abstention from undertaking investigations would be in place until January 1st, 2025, or until the collective bargaining agreement has been finalized with the City of Akron and the Fraternal Order of the Police. Now, the thinking and the intent behind this specifically is in order to create a period of time for the board, the City of Akron's Law Department, and the Fraternal Order of Police to come to some type of understanding as to how the board's investigations play into investigations that are being conducted by the City of Akron. It also takes into consideration the practical reality. At this point, our board is not at its full capacity in order to undertake an investigation, perhaps to the degree which we believe should be done so. So this resolution, in effect, seeks to forego or really suspend the board's investigating power to the extent to, in essence, come up with a compromise and some type of solution that everybody can come to the table with and really avoid litigation that could be both costly and detrimental to the mission of this board, which is ultimately to improve policing relationships between the citizens of Akron as well as the Akron Police Department. Now, I want to clarify, us not undertaking investigations does not mean that our review of complaint process, as we have been doing, would be suspended. That would still go on, that would not stop, but what it means to a large extent is that we would not launch the investigation that's contemplated under the charter and a more deeper investigation while a APD investigation is going on at the same time, which at some points has been referred to as a parallel investigation. So this is the resolution that's in front of you, and I governance, we thought that it could be a good compromise, but we wanted to bring it to the board's attention for discussion in hopes to move along this place that we've been at with our rules.
Thank you, Mr. Costa, and I really want to commend you for coming up with this idea. I think this is just a very, very good one. And hopefully it will be acceptable both to this board and to the council and to the FOP. Madam Chairman, we thought that it would be useful to have whatever other discussion board members might want to have this evening about it. But this is something that we all ought to be present for and to act on. So, in fact, this was Mr. Boyd's idea, that we use the retreat this Saturday when we're all going to be together. And Mr. Peoples, I think he's going to make some special effort to be there, which we appreciate, which otherwise wouldn't happen. But what we're going to suggest is that once discussion has been had on this tonight, as fully as people want to, we then have a motion to table it with the expectation that we would bring it up for further discussion and we would hope action on Saturday, and so that the notice of the Saturday retreat, which does need to be publicly noticed, would specifically contain the information that we will be taking up this item of business, so that the public and the media know that that's intended. So that's our suggestion for how to go tonight. Answer any other questions, have whatever other discussion, but then table it.
I may have missed it with the long narrative on it, but does this include parallel investigations?
We would be undertaking not to do those.
I'm sorry?
We would be, our undertaking is not to do them.
Okay.
Until a agreement has been worked out, until the new Fraternal Order Police collective bargaining agreement has been executed.
Mm-hmm. I honestly don't see them agreeing to something like that, but okay, I just wanted to know.
For what it's worth, I mean, it's been agreed to in other cities. I mean, you know, there's been a trade-off of compensation, you know, for the agreement. You know, that was it was discussed when we met with the law department months ago, if you remember. And my reaction to that was it's a win-win. But it's been done in other cities. It's not. I think it's not impossible.
No, it's not impossible. I just don't know if it's best practice. I mean, having been a federal investigator myself, right, there's no way I would have been investigating the same case at the same time the state was still investigating it. And I just don't think that that's best practice, that's all. So.
The article that I gave everyone 2 weeks ago highlighted the city of Dallas being very successful in implementing what Mr. Costa suggested, just for FYI.
Well, okay, Dallas is a big city, larger city. They have different issues. Some are the same, some different population systems. You know, every city is different. So.
I think Ms. Reed had a question. Or not?
I'm sorry.
You were looking like you were going to ask a question or say something.
Mr. Peoples, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
On parallel investigation.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'd like to hear like a rationale too, being that you have.
If we go forward with the way the rules are right now, and we go through all that litigation, and we come up short, we're going to hurt ourselves. So this right here, you got to give and take.
Let me clarify my question. I want to hear your thoughts on the benefits or the risk of conducting parallel investigations. Ms. Anaskevich just mentioned that she has a history of being a federal investigator. You, as a police investigator, I'd like to hear, based on your professional experience, what are your thoughts about having a parallel investigation conducted with APD here in the city of Akron? Would that be beneficial?
Yeah, I think it would be. Just for the simple fact, they may miss some things, and we can get those things that they might have missed. So I have no problem with a parallel investigation at all.
Do you feel that the things that we could find that they may have missed can only be found if it's a parallel investigation and not a post investigation, which is currently the process that our auditor, or the position that this board takes and that our auditor currently performs?
I think it could go either or, post or parallel. The auditor's going to find whatever he or she finds that the police might have overlooked or not necessarily agree with. As far as the parallel investigation, we don't have to agree with what they say. We can do our own thing. And it may be something totally different if we do our own parallel investigation. But right now, with this new thing that was just brought up tonight, I think we gotta think about some things before we jump into the hot water. I think this right here that they proposed, I think this is the better way to go for right now. I think we need to go this way.
With that being said, and this is my personal thoughts about the change or addendum to the resolution, which is separate from my thoughts on whether we should conduct parallel investigations. Quite frankly, I feel that if we are looking to sit at the table when the FOP are conducting their negotiations, I think that is what we should put in our resolution, and not a preliminary rule of this is the power we think we have, but we're not going to exercise it. I think that's ridiculous. I think if we want the power, it needs to be actual power, and that's something that we can revise once we sit at the table with the FOP. I would feel more comfortable if we had a commitment to making sure that we are at the table when the FOP in the city of Akron is conducting the negotiations for the new CBA contract. Suggesting what our power is that we have already been told we do not have, that the charter did not give us, and saying, well, we're just not going to exercise it until we're able to sit down. I think we're just writing extra words on paper. We can move forward with a resolution that says we believe, we would like, we are asking, we are requesting, demanding that this Citizens Review Board is always at the table whenever the FOP is sitting at the table for negotiations. I think the rhetoric of delaying a power that we don't have is just adding words to paper.
Anyone else? I tend to agree with Ms. Reed, to be honest. I think that there are other things that we can put our energies to that might actually bear fruit, such as what she's just mentioned, us advocating to have a seat at the table during the CBA negotiations. It's better for us to try and get along with everyone rather than always fighting each other. We're going to always be fighting with the FOP if we keep advocating for parallel investigations, which I personally don't agree with anyway, having been an investigator. It's just not best practice. The other element as far as parallel investigations that I think is being overlooked here is the human capital costs. When victims, families, and witnesses are involved, which they are, with police investigations and may have been traumatized by the event that occurred, having the police in one ear asking them investigators questions and having the Citizens Review Board in the other ear at the same time asking them questions, is really, quite frankly, it's just not fair to the witness or victim. It's not. It just isn't. And we have to be prudent in our thinking. We can't just think about what we want. We have to think about how it's going to affect those for whom we have to get that information from. And people are very fragile when they have been traumatized. And to have the police, as I just stated, to have them, knocking on their door one day and us knocking on the door the next day, so, to speak metaphorically, is really not fair to the witnesses and/or victims of whatever the situation is. I have issues with that.
Madam Chairman, if I might?
Yes.
On really kind of both points, the reality is that some of us on the board do not agree with we do not agree that we lack the power. In other words, I don't want to get too far into it since it was an executive session, but to the extent that you might understand that the law department was taking the position that we do not have the authority to do parallel investigations, I, for one, strongly disagree with that, and I've said that repeatedly. And I don't think I'm the only person on the board who is of that view. So that I support the rules as they were drafted, and I think they're legal. And I think in the end, if they were litigated, they would be upheld. So that, and recognizing that there is a difference of view on the board about what is the extent of our authority, the legal question. Set aside the wisdom of using it. Given that there is a difference, this is a way of bridging the difference, a compromise, and that's why I think it's a wise thing. Now, the other piece is that it is one thing to the question of what is the authority is different from the wisdom of using the authority. It may be that it is unwise to use the authority. It is certainly, that authority is certainly used and used successfully in many other cities and many other jurisdictions. And in general, it's when the federal courts get involved, that's a part of it. So I think it can be done, but I recognize that perhaps both of you think that it's unwise. That's a different issue about using the authority. And again, these rules are not just for us. They are for boards going forward. And it'll be for boards going forward in their contexts to decide potentially, assuming we have the power, should it be used or not, and if so, how. So I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that the wisdom of the power should be considered in determining whether we take the position that we have the power.
Okay, let me ask another question. One, what would be the upside? Well, we haven't talked about the upside of doing a parallel investigation. What's the upside of that, one? And then two, say we did do parallel investigations, and it rendered whatever it was, that the police did a bad thing or what have you. Still, per the charter, we have no authority to fire anyone, any police officers. We have no authority to suspend any police officers. All we can still do are recommendations. So
yes,
it just doesn't make sense to me to fight for something that we already know we've been told by the law department that we cannot do without.
That's privileged and
Okay, I'm sorry that we.
Please stop.
Sorry. Okay.
Please stop.
So we've already know that it's not.
We've been told something by one set of lawyers whose professional duty does not run to this board, put it that way. I don't know if you all saw the Beacon Journal editorial, which I thought was very well written, about what frankly may be a conflict of interest on the part of the law department, and suggesting that we ought to have our own legal counsel, which I personally agree with. So again, I understand some people believe that is the correct way to interpret the charter based on what the law department has said or otherwise, and there are others of us who disagree. This is a way of bridging the difference. And if I might just and I think this goes to something that you were talking about, Ms. Reed, the value potentially of a parallel investigation, and again, recognizing just reality. It would be the very rare case in which we would have the resources, at least as we're presently structured, with a staff of 3, very rare case that we would ever do it, okay? But the difference is that if we are able to do an investigation ourselves and come to findings and make report and recommendations, concerning the incident and what, frankly, what discipline we think would be appropriate before the decision on discipline is made, before the chief decides, then it has the potential to actually impact the decision.
But the charter does give us investigation authority, but after the police finish theirs.
Well, that is where we differ. I think that I and others believe we have the power, if we choose to use it, to do a parallel investigation, and therefore make a recommendation that is taken into account by the chief in the final decision. And that's the major difference. That's the major advantage of a parallel investigation.
Let me say this. Two things. Number one, in June, we unanimously voted to do parallel investigation. That's first thing. Second thing, we need to take into consideration this chamber was absolutely full and the people's voice came forward. So those two things we want to keep in mind.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lewis. I'd like to, Brandon, you're more than welcome to go because I've talked. Go ahead.
Just from I just kind of want to address a point you stated. At the end of the day, the charter advises to something that it's unclear whether or not that authority is there. And so at the end of the day, we need to have a negotiation. I would much rather go into a negotiation having us pass and declare that we have this authority, and then saying, but we will not use it while the negotiations are ongoing, rather than us saying categorically that we do not have this power and stripping it away from any board that comes behind us, but then saying, but please give us a spot at the table. Please give us a spot at the table. I think that's a much stronger negotiating point, and I'd much rather be in that position than the alternative.
Should we consider looking at changing the charter? Is that a consideration?
Well, I think if it may be that the board, after the negotiations, after the new agreement, that might be a matter that would be taken up, but at this point, that isn't anything that we could do or should do.
Ms. Lewis, I want to first comment on your comment. I think the sentiment of the power that we would like to have, what the citizens would like us to have, is different, in my opinion. I understand that we have differing opinions than what the charter gave us the authority to do, in my opinion. So this is not to take away from what the citizens want. I believe we all want the same thing. We're citizens. We want subpoena power, and we want any power that would empower our citizens to be able to have a fair and accountable and transparent police department. I don't think that's a question for any of us. We want whatever the citizens feel they need to be able to trust the Akron Police Department. My concern is going to the table saying, because I don't see the difference, and Brandon, excuse me, I just don't see the difference in saying we're in stronger position by putting something there and saying, well, but we're not going to use it. It also sends the message that we don't feel we can. Why not? If you have a power and you believe you have it, then you should use it. And so the only reason you wouldn't use it is because there's ambiguity in whether we actually have the power. The position of what we would like does not change whether or not it's in our rules. Our rules can be changed, as we know. We can amend the rules. We need to go and demand the authority, including more than just having the power to make recommendations. That's ridiculous too. Having subpoena power, having parallel investigations to only be able to make a recommendation essentially renders us helpless. And I think if we really want to expand what the citizens want, we need to go to the table with more than just, we want parallel investigations. Let's start there. Number two, I simply feel the best option that we have is to make sure that we are at the table, and we're not begging for anything. We are going there with our expertise and supported by the citizens of Akron, who are going to also support us by going to their councilmen and women to tell them that these are the things that we need to see in the CBA agreement. We have to pressure our council people, and we can do that by promoting and pushing our constituents in the community to pressure their council members not to negotiate a CBA that doesn't give us more than recommendation power, that doesn't give us subpoena power, and that doesn't give us the ability to perform parallel investigations. I think we're thinking about this all wrong.
Anyone else?
Then, Madam Chairman, I'll move to table the motion to this Saturday.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Gippin,
Yes?
Peoples,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Castle,
Yes.
and Skevich, yes.
Yes.
Costa, Ms. Reed,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis, I'm sorry, Ms.
Richards? Yes.
Ms. Richards.
Yes.
All right, so the motion is tabled.
Thank you, and that's our report, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Next is the Human Resources and Finance.
I'm very happy to report we have 23 applicants for the auditor position. So we need to figure out how we move forward. All of them do not meet the minimum requirements. So I asked Stacy to put them into the two different categories of those who meet the minimum requirements and those who don't, and forward them all to us anyhow, so we have a look at them. Most boards would run with the HR committee, winnowing down candidates and then presenting like 3 to 5 for the entire board to interview. I don't know how you all feel about that. We can all certainly have access to all the resumes, all the applications. I'm open to suggestions about what people want to do. This is going to be a time suck, for sure.
What's kind of like your instinct, or what's your thoughts with respect to what's going to be the best approach?
I would like everyone to have access to all the resumes, and if you would like to comment on them, put one forward that you think is exceptionally strong to the committee. My guess is we're going to all end up pretty much on the same page. We will then interview anyone who meets the minimum qualifications who we think is a good fit as an HR subcommittee, and then from the subcommittee, 3 to 5 of the top applicants to be interviewed by the whole board. What? 10 just in case. I hope we have 10 great candidates. That would be amazing. But I'm not sure the entire board wants to sit through 10 interviews. That's generally the position of a subcommittee. But this is a super important, probably the most important thing we're doing at the moment. So if we all want to be involved, you are all welcome to it. And for me, it has to be in an evening. So we're looking at probably, 4 interviews in an evening, and we'll try to knock them out. And then we can we can all do 10, we can screen those down to 3, all do another 3. This is our process. We can do whatever we want.
Can we just leave it open, like whoever can show? Everybody's really, really, really busy. Can we leave it open as to whoever can show up? We give a notice on the interviews when they're going to be held, and then whatever board members can show up.
Absolutely.
Rather than making it like you have to be there.
Sure, I could say like next Tuesday from 6 to 10, we're having these interviews at such and such a place. Show up if you would like to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would make more sense since everyone works full-time and some have full lives.
I'm just curious if we've got a quorum of the board and we end up all showing up.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we would then need to resolve to an executive session to conduct that interview.
Right, because that's a personnel issue. Yes. We would have to.
So we would technically have to notice each of the interviews, and then go to an executive session and kick people out and then do the interviews.
Reality is the media probably won't take the time, but yeah, we have to notice the fact that we're gathering, but we have the right to go into executive session.
Well, maybe we should just, I don't know.
Given the amount of candidates that we have and how much work we have to get done, we should probably make a decision tonight in terms of our approach to hammering out these interviews.
Maybe I should add this. I mean, legally, the sunshine notice has to be given if the committee convenes. I mean, so that just, however many board members are going to be actually going, doesn't matter. It's the same process. Has to be noticed and then executive session, and then out of executive session. So that doesn't matter.
But for the job interview, like when we interviewed Ms. Thompson, it was just the Human Resource
Yeah,
Subcommittee.
which,
And maybe we should just keep it that way. Just be consistent and keep it that way.
No.
And keep the process the way it was, and it, you know.
Mr. Gippen, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying regardless of whether it was just us three or if it's all 9 of us, we would have still had to notice it the same way, with the exception that if we're all together, if there's a quorum, then it would look a little different because we'd have to call executive session.
well, I mean, even if, maybe in retrospect, I mean, even the interviewing process that the committee undertook, because it was, you had the full committee. And
Just 3 of us.
It was
that's
just 3
the
of
full
us.
committee. That was the
Right.
Human Resources Committee. So just as the same way that the Human Resources Committee, when it just has its meetings, has to give notice. Well, technically, probably we should have given notice.
Okay.
So if it's the committee, it's notice and executive session. If it's the board or quorum of the board, it's notice and executive session. That's why I'm saying it doesn't matter. We've got to go through that process either way. So we just do it. It shouldn't hamper us. It's just process.
You're saying for job interviews, we have to notice job interviews?
No, we have to notice the fact that, say, the committee is convening for the purpose, but then it can go into executive session to actually conduct the interview.
Thank you. We did not know that, so thanks.
Yeah, it's
You're always making me feel a little less smart. But no, thank you.
No,
And we will do that moving
Tristan,
forward.
I've got the training and like 50 years plus in, that's all it is. It ain't smarts. Believe me, it's not smarts.
So,
So I think all we need to do is just notice it, and then if anyone wants to come during that space,
Yeah.
then they can show up.
Yes.
And if not, then no worries. All right.
We can do this. This is not, the procedure does not need to get in the way of our doing the work, okay?
All right, I will pass on the resumes as soon as I receive them from Stacy, and then we will set, hopefully next week, we will set evenings to interview.
Just a question. Did you get the majority of those from where? Because that's,
I have no idea.
really?
Yeah, I can ask her. She just said that she had 23 of them, and how did she want me to proceed, so, or how did I want her to proceed?
I need to clarify. We're not doing interviews in public.
No.
No.
Okay.
We're going to executive session.
Okay,
We have to notice them as a public meeting, but then.
but
would
then we
to
go into executive session for, okay. That might be good with the whole board. I think so. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't have anything else for the HR subcommittee.
Sorry, can I add one more thing? I just want to,
Thanks for coming.
again, officially, and you were acknowledged earlier, but Shannon, welcome, welcome, welcome. I was so happy to look down there and to see you. It has been a long journey, and we are just so happy. We'd like to hear from you. How has your first few days been going?
The first few days have been very busy. As you all know, we are moving into a new office space, and it's been a little challenging because there's no one in the office and there's no phone. So I'm working out of the HR department downstairs, doing a lot of just basic training through what the city wants me to know and their processes and procedures. So it's going well. And thank you again.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's no budget and finance report this evening.
Okay. Community engagement, Ms. Lewis, please.
Thank you. So first off, the Community Engagement Subcommittee is fine-tuning a frequently asked question informational piece to provide in advance of any kind of community programming that we attend. and to place on our website so that the public in general, if they have general questions, can get answers to those questions prior to us coming, preferably understanding what the role of the Citizens Police Oversight Board is. So we'll have that once again next week. And the companion piece to that, we also voted to provide a process as to how to respond to invitations that we get, whether it be the entire board or one or two of us. And by doing that, we can provide a point person to accept attending a community program. The first step that we decided was that the invitation should go through the community engagement, first of all, and we would have, I beg your pardon, we all would be made aware of the invitation. So that's the transparency there, so we can make sure that everybody knows what everyone is doing. And then secondly, to determine who, and that's the accountability, so that when we accept invitations, we'll know that this person is going, or the entire board is going to attend, so that no one gets lost in the fray. Because we want to make sure if someone asks for us to come somewhere, either we're there as a whole, or one or two, or we're just unable, because obviously we can't attend everything, but we want to hit those important meetings. And of course, all of them they consider to be important, but you know, just making sure that we cross all T's and dot all I's. And then the other thing is, what else did I say? Can't read. That when we accept invitations, we want to make sure that we know about them in advance and that we provide all of the information. So we want to get together essentially an informational packet, number one, and then number two, if we have to lay any ground rules and just kind of understand what is it that they're looking for and have that in advance, so that once again, we don't misstep or miscommunicate. I think that the more we know, the better off we are with regard to that. And then the other thing with regard to networking, we had the opportunity to attend the ARPA Youth Gun Violence Prevention and Intervention Circle on Saturday at Garfield, and that was extremely informative, and I feel like it's going somewhere. So some of the takeaways that I had was the progress of the program in the area of out-of-school time network and the expansion of students as interns. So the whole idea was, we had some folks in the gallery that came to, Reverend Penfield was there as well. It was very productive. But students as interns, so essentially those students that graduate from high school can come back to the high school and assist either a teacher or a coach, and sort of be a mentor to those students that are coming through the same kind of program. So they feel like that extension or expansion of that program is going to be helpful, along with the additional outreach to student athletes. And then lastly, there's an event coming next Wednesday, November 8th, and it's called Rethinking Race. It will be at E.J. Thomas on next Wednesday, which is November the 8th from 7 to 8, and the principal speaker is going to be Isabella Wilkerson, the author of Caste and The Warmth of Other Suns. And that's my report. Any questions? Beg your pardon?
We can't hear your question, Mr. Gibbons.
No.
Oh.
No, not now.
Just really quickly, because I'm pretty interested by that youth violence ARPA presentation, and I imagine that's a report out based upon the allocations that the city of Akron made to the various programs that are receiving ARPA dollars and some of the progress that they've been made. Mm-hmm. And so you said the takeaway is that there's been progress in some of the outside mentoring pieces.
Yeah,
in that area.
The mentoring piece that allows students to become interns. And so what happens is that the high school students were afforded the opportunity, if they wanted to be interns, so be paid interns, much like a college student can be a paid intern or a graduate student. So the self-same kind of template.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I appreciate you mentioning that. This is probably just I guess me thinking out loud, but we were talking earlier in governance about some of the subjects that our annual report is going to cover, and how youth violence is a major aspect of police relations within the city, and kind of how that fits into the larger framework of what we do as a board. And like, I don't really know what that looks like, but I think it's something that we've all got to be thinking about. And thank you for the robust report. Yeah, the community engagement committee is clearly touching on a lot of different circles and networks, and so appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
I just have one question. Are you anticipating having any more like Q&A events in the near future?
Not for
With
the
the
rest of the year. We said we didn't feel like the rest of the year would be good, but we're getting together a calendar of events for next year.
Okay, so this is just a suggestion, because, you know, some like really high, like Washington, whatever, political types or whatever, when they're getting ready to go on a talk show or something, they have their questions formulated for them ahead of time so that they're not asked any gotcha questions, and so that they don't get caught up in something, you know, any kind of mayhem from the crowd. Is that something you think would be beneficial? Is whoever you're negotiating with to have the community engagement forum, if there's a way of us getting the information ahead of time on what the citizens want to know from us?
So I think a part of this frequently asked question document is going to do a whole lot of that in advance.
Okay.
So we'll provide that to them in advance, and we'll put it on the website. And then we're also going to try in advance to have some sort of structure, or suggest to them some kind of structure that would be helpful, as opposed to, like you said, gotcha questions.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
Thank you all so much for, to the Community Engagement Committee for formalizing a process for invitations in the community. That is so important, and I think it helps us to better engage where we're needed, what is needed, and for us to be better prepared. One thing that I did not hear that I imagine is coming down the pipeline, I think it would be awesome to create a form that if we are given an invitation, we send them out a standard form so they can fill out what it is that they're requesting, and so then we can kind of have a standardized process for how they go about responding to an invitation, and we can give them something back from our committee so we can better have a standard way of knowing what they requested.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and that was part of our conversation that we had during the community engagement subcommittee meeting, where once we formalize what this process is, we envision it like kind of having some sort of system where we're tracking all these invitations, we're having a point person who can then do the reach out, just saying, hey, we'd love to accept the invitation, how many board members, what are the objectives of this engagement, and we would hope that that would capture those things that I think you're trying to capture. And then that way, the other piece of that was part of our fabulous conversation, was making sure that we have the right board members there. So there are some commitments that we don't need all 9 of us. So maybe it's 2, and maybe it's something that we know, hey, this is a mental health, we're going to send Reed for that because we know that's your expertise. If it's a legal matter, we're going to rely on Mr. Gibbon or Mr. Costa or Ms. Richards. So some different strategic things like that, so it's not all falling on the same people and we don't all feel like we all have to go. So just being more strategic with it, streamlining the process so that we are better prepared and more informed going into it. And then also on the back end, being able to do more intentional follow-up as well.
Anyone else? Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Next, new business. Streamlining designation of communication point person. That came from someone.
Sorry, in my absence last week, I was not able to elaborate on what this particular addition to the agenda was. But just largely, sometimes when we get emails, I feel like we just kind of, like hungry hippo, we're pouncing on some balls, all of us, and sometimes we're not getting a centralized response. And so we've talked about it, but we have not really prioritized or followed through with the agreement. So this was largely pertaining to email correspondence. When we get individuals from the community that are asking questions, it is so important that it's uniform in how we respond, who responds, and when and how. So it was my interpretation that if it is pertaining to a complaint, it is to be handled by Mr. Fields or whoever at that time is our auditor. Is that correct?
Yes.
It was supposed to be two persons, Mr. Field or Mr. Boyd, and I think at one point, Mr. Peoples, is that right? And those persons were to CC the other, so that they would know what was going on.
So just want to make sure that we are following that process. It is important to be consistent. Another idea that I was thinking, if it's something that we are really passionate about responding to, that is maybe out of the purview of something that I would ordinarily respond to send it to what I would call a communications committee. This is not a real committee. It's largely just people, and if you want the entire board to be CC'd, that's fine. But where, for instance, there was an email correspondence where a citizen was concerned about the board's credentials and how we were selected. So I created a response, but I sent it to Mr. Boyd and allowed him to review it, and then for him to respond to the individual. And then I just shot him a text to say, hey, sent you an email to respond to XYZ. If you're comfortable with it, you can send it forward. Wanted to hear you guys' thoughts about maybe a process like that. So instead of us just directly responding, then we have another set of eyes on it before it goes back to the individual. Anyone have any comments or complaints?
Personally, I'm not opposed to us establishing a better form of communication and what that structure looks like. So I even like the idea that maybe there is a communications committee that's meeting, even, I don't know what that looks like in my mind, but being able to do that follow-up. So even if it is a complaint, so right now we agreed complaints are going to be handled by Mr. Fields, but maybe it's, we have designated representatives who even make that introduction. Hi, thank you so much for reaching out. We're going to forward this to, so that we get that consistent, because I think what's happening is some of our emails are getting responses in 30 seconds and some of them are sitting and sending, and we're under the assumption, hey, we agreed upon this. So I do think we really need to refine that, because I think that's going to be beneficial for a multitude of reasons. So I'm not opposed to the idea of us exploring what that could potentially look like so that we can streamline that process, because it represents us as a board. It really helps with that engagement and making sure that we're treating everybody with respect.
Oh, and I also wanted to add, I do believe I CC'd you too, Donzella. So usually if there's a communication regarding responding to an individual, I'll usually send it to Boyd, and then I also will CC Donzella as vice chair. So I just created my own process, but I do want us to streamline communication, because the community deserves to know that we hear them, regardless of whether or not we can answer their question immediately or if it requires some delay. I do have some ideas. I don't know if I need to say them out loud, but I think...
I have an idea. I think you should head that committee.
So ideally, it sounds great. As you guys know, I am bombarded with honestly, about 50 emails a day, whether my patients are in jail, they need refills. So it would be helpful if I had another person that could help kind of keep eyes on it. I do try to check my email regularly, but as you guys all know, that is not always true. So it would be helpful if it was actually a committee. And like I said, not, like it doesn't always have to be a direct meeting, but we just need to consider a process on how we streamline information.
Ms. Reed, I'd be happy to work on that with you.
I like to volunteer our admin 3 to help us, because she is a direct chain link to our auditor and would probably be really good at getting information to him or saying, hey, did you follow up about this case? So I think us three would probably be like Power Rangers if we were to team up together. And then we'll figure out a process and talk about it.
Do we need to motion that officially?
That's what I was going to ask.
I wonder, I'm just pushing this out as an alternative. I wonder, rather than us forming a new committee, if we maybe tasked a special project to the community engagement subcommittee, and then the work kind of took place there, because Caitlin, you're already very active in that committee. I was gonna say, and Tristan, you're pretty involved there as well too. And it sounds like our concern is the communications that are coming from the community, ensuring that they're being responded to in an effective way. I just don't want us to create something new and additional if we don't necessarily really need to, especially if it could just kind of be like a special project.
Two different things she's talking about. The community engagement would be addressing invitations for so far as programming, but she's talking about if someone has, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. You want to.
Yeah, you're right. They are two different things, but I do agree. So completely right. You guys responding to invitations will be directly through the Community Engagement Committee. What I think Brandon is just saying is, instead of let's forming a new committee, let's just kind of embed this in community engagement, and then I'll tag along with the project. This project will be a baby of community engagement, but I'm going to be adopted on the project, me and Shannon. So we don't have to form an actual committee, is what he's saying. Let's not form a new subcommittee. Let's just do this as a branch of community engagement.
This is what I'm thinking about, though. When we begin to provide additional information using our website and going across social media platforms, I do think it's important to have an additional committee, or at least 2 or 3 folks that are addressing that. Does that make sense? And I think that our administrative assistant and maybe another person and you could do that. That's what I'm envisioning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, and I think we're all on the same page. We're just using different terminology. Yes, but it can be inside of community engagement, but tasked to our admin 3 and me. Yes.
That'll work. That works.
Anyone else? Any further discussion? Is this something that we need to vote on? Okay. All right, under new business, we're going to move on then to B, educating the public on the charter, the CBA, and role of the independent police auditor.
I think I'm up again. Must be a pinch hitter. So this was just largely based on some feedback from a community engagement that some of us were able to attend. I think everything was a whirlwind. The community voted because they did want a citizens review board, but I don't think everyone was fully aware of what that meant, what it looks like, what the charter is, what the auditor does, how they function, our limitations, and our function and execution. This is something that I wanted to bring up, and I probably should have just sent the community engagement in an email. I think this is going to be a function of community engagement for us to be intentional, to partner with organizations and ask them if they can allow us 20 or 30 minutes of their time to bring out a booklet or brochure. We go through 5 pages so they can truly understand what the Oversight Board does, how we function, what's the role of the auditor, and the charter. And I think this is especially important in the upcoming year because it's a CBA negotiation year. We want our community constituents to go out, pressure their Congress people to expand that CBA agreement to give us more autonomy. In order to do that, they need to be informed about what we do, what we can't do, and what the charter says and what the auditor does.
Okay, so do you have an idea of what that would look like, Ms. Reed?
Example, if the NAACP is having a Martin Luther King breakfast, can we tag along and talk about this? Just an example. If young Democrats are having a meeting, we want to be on the agenda. We need to target small, impactful groups in our community to make sure they are aware. The reason I'm saying this is because we met with a group who I have great respect for, but it was very clear that the information in their, I don't even want to go down that route. We need to be able to inform the community on what we can and can't do and what the charter is and what the auditor does.
And I think too, I agree with you. When we're thinking about that particular setting, one of the things that we knew in advance, and I'm not sure, that's one of the reasons why I suggested that any invitation that we get, it come through the community engagement, because what happened was someone accepted it and that was fine, we were there, but the clarity was not there. And so there were 3 questions that were on the floor, and when we began to engage, those 3 questions were not entertained at all. And so as a consequence, the information sort of got lost in the melee. And typically, in all fairness, there are times when we are in a public setting and people just don't know. And they go by hearsay or they go by what they've been told or seen, that kind of thing. And you know how that works. And so I think the frequently asked question document is going to address that. It's going to say, hey, we can do this, we can't do that. We're empowered by the charter XYZ. And then after we do that, we'll have other informational pieces to provide for them in advance, along with setting the tone and the tenor and them knowing this is what we can do versus this is what we can't do. This is how it's going to operate. That's one of the reasons why it's more important to me, or more advantageous for us to be able to host something on our own. Then with that, we can sort of, provide parameters, not control, but parameters around what's going on. And so if we don't have that opportunity, of course, we can provide information and suggestions in advance and say, hey, what is it that you're looking for? Because a lot of times people don't know. They just absolutely don't know. And they're starting from ground zero, or they think they know, or they're very informed. For example, when we did the meet and greet community conversation, that group of person was very informed, right? And so you're going to find where some folks know and some folks don't know. So the onus is on us to be able to provide information and be able to say, hey, we can do this, we can't do that, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree.
Well, to your point, a lot of times when people are coming to you is because they have interest in you and they've done some homework. Most times, we don't go to a concert when we're not aware of the artist.
Right.
So that's why it does look a little different. I completely agree with you when we go to them, because you're right, the parameters look a little different, but I think we want to reach out to people that don't have the knowledge or don't have the experience of being more engaged with us, that are not necessarily a front row audience member to what we do. Yeah.
Want to catch everybody.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is that we're envisioning, in theory, someone could go to our website, they could press a button to go to a form to submit a request to have someone or members of the Police Oversight Board come speak to them. But at the same time, we need to also be proactively thinking of groups that exist in the community to which we should be reaching out to in order to have a presence at. And so there seems to be, I guess, in the middle ground is how are we being aware of the activity that's going on in the community, and how are we, I guess, gauging, measuring, and staying on top of that. And so whether that's a function that our amazing new assistant carries out, whether that's a function that we ask our deputy auditor to do, or our new auditor, I do love the idea of saying that we need to be proactively reaching out to groups in addition to making ourselves available to groups. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like.
Is it possible on the website to have a section, like I think the frequently asked questions section is invaluable. I think that's absolutely great. And if nothing else is on that website, that needs to be on there. But is it possible to have something up there for people to list what their upcoming events are in the community? And then that gives us a way of looking at the website and say, oh, hey, this is coming up and that's coming up. Maybe as a board, we should, and then we could talk about as a board if we should attend or not, or if we can attend or not. Is there a way to put something like that on the website for people to say, if you're having an event, list it here on the website? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm not sure.
I just think we're probably in the weeds a little too much at the moment, but we can't just let anyone post on our website. It would have to go through one of us. And then it seems like it's a more direct line of communication for people just to contact us and say they would like us to appear and what they're asking or expecting from us, rather than just putting something up there. So I think it's definitely something that can be explored, and I hear the intent is for the community to be actually more involved in what we're doing, which I support 100%. I just think we need processes in place for that.
So I guess as we're talking through it, we could, I guess in theory, and I don't know what this function looks like, but we could have like a community calendar on our website to where there could be like a request button to like post an event on our community calendar, to which then people, the public, could come and see and kind of see where we're going to be at, what we're going to do. I think at this point we're kind of like talking about a number of different ideas and approaches to engage better with the public, but
Ian.
yeah.
I just have one statement. I do love all the ideas, but I just want to go back to Ms. Reed's original point, just for clarification. You are looking for us to do more outreach. So a lot of these that we're talking about right now would be people coming to us who are already aware, have some sort of investment in matters that we are involved in, but this is more us doing the outreach just to do quick little, hey, this is who we are, these are ways to engage with us, and then again, sharing that FAQ page. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely, because the community being aware of us needing to, what we need from that CBA is so important, and it has to happen. It has to happen.
Might want to share, you're using an acronym for the people.
Sorry, the collective bargaining agreement, which is the contract that the city of Akron has with the Federal Order of Police.
Fraternal Order of Police, yeah, which is the police union. Okay, any further discussion? Well, this sounds like something that's going to take a lot more discussion in the near future, so, but I love all the ideas. Again, the website issue with the frequently asked questions, I think that's going to be very valuable, so.
One last point, as Caitlin did mention earlier, our website is up now through the City of Akron's new webpage. It looks phenomenally better. But over the next month, kind of just play with it. Look around, go there, test it out. We still do have a couple of quotes available if we decided to go another direction with having our own website. So I think now is a really cool trial period for us to figure out, is this going to fulfill our needs for the immediate future, or do we need to look elsewhere?
Who set that up, Ms. Marsh? Okay, next is under new business is C, utilization of Zoom for board member participation in meetings. That, I asked for this. Where's everybody going? Do you all feel that, okay, we've got these monitors up, this is where we meet. Anything, winter's coming, anything could come up where someone wants to participate in the board meeting, but can't get here for one reason or another, but still wants to participate. There are council members that do it all the time. They participate in the council meetings via Zoom. And I wanted to know from the board, is that something that you think we should be able to have the privilege to do as well? Because if there's a consensus that we should be able to do this, it's my understanding that it has to go through approval It has to go through council approval. There's other hoops that have to be jumped through to do it. I'm talking about the Zoom, us being able to participate in our board meetings via Zoom. And what does the board think? If you think it's important, then I can pursue what it is we need to do with city council in order for us to participate via Zoom. If someone has to be a board member, a board member has to participate with in the meeting via Zoom for one reason or another, they can't get down here.
Right. I think,
So we actually already approved that under our rules that we adopted in July.
right.
So, and the language there is that board members can attend to the extent permissible by city council. So we just haven't, it's been a practice that hasn't been
So then,
really acted on, but
so how do we act on that then? Because
Well-
when I inquired about it in our last meeting, the IT individual stated that we had to go through city council, it had to be approved by them, and then there was another step that had to take place, and then another step, and so I'm just wondering, how do we,
We'll probably ought to call Margot Somerville and just ask her.
okay.
She'd probably see to it.
Do you all think that's important, that we should be able to do that?
Initially, I had some reservations about it, but now that we meet biweekly and there are some meetings that we really do need a vote or would benefit from a vote, and, to have the ability to chime in, to not hinder or delay a process that requires an important vote, absolutely.
Ms. Richards, what do you think?
100% for it.
Mr. Costa?
I think at this point, we just need to figure out how we set it up.
Okay. Ms. Gaskin? Yeah. Ms. Lewis? So just call Margot and go from there? Okay, I can do that. All right, any old business? Anyone need to talk about? All right, then, someone want to make a motion that we adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Gibbon?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes?
Ms. Castle?
Yes.
And Ms. Devitt, yes. Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes.
Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay, so why the no vote?